Join me as I take on the challenge of building the ultimate fantasy football team and try to dominate my league this season. Fantasy football has taken the world by storm, with millions of players worldwide competing against each other to build the perfect team. But what sets the champions apart from the rest? Is it just luck, or is there a solid strategy behind their success? In this video, we're going to dive into the ultimate fantasy football guide, covering everything from common pitfalls to advanced strategies that will give you the edge you need to dominate your league. One of the biggest mistakes fantasy football players make is overvaluing star players. We've all been there. We see a player like Tom Brady or Christian McCaffrey lighting it up on the field and we think they're a surefire bet for our fantasy team. But the truth is, even the best players can have off days, and if you're not careful, you'll end up wasting valuable draft picks on players who won't deliver. Another common pitfall is neglecting research. It's easy to get caught up in the hype surrounding a particular player or team, but if you're not doing your due diligence, you might end up with a roster full of players who are injured, suspended, or just plain overrated. You need to stay on top of the latest news and developments if you want to stay ahead of the competition. And then there's the age-old problem of chasing last week's numbers. We've all seen it happen. A player has a breakout game and suddenly everyone wants to pick them up. But the truth is, past performance is no guarantee of future success. You need to look beyond the surface level and dig deeper into the stats if you want to make informed decisions about your team. Finally, many fantasy football players fall into the trap of being overly attached to their players. We've all had that one player who we just can't seem to cut ties with, even when they're not performing. But the truth is, in fantasy football, you need to be ruthless. If a player isn't delivering, it's time to move on and find someone who will. So, how do you avoid these common pitfalls and build a team that will dominate your league? The key is to develop a solid strategy that covers every aspect of the game, from drafting to trading to managing your team throughout the season. This means doing your research, staying up to date on the latest news and developments, and being willing to adapt to changing circumstances. The first step in building a dominant fantasy football team is drafting. This is where the foundation of your team is laid, and it's crucial that you get it right. One strategy that can help you dominate your draft is targeting undervalued players who have a high ceiling. These are players who may not be as well known but have the potential to break out and make a big impact. Another key strategy is building a well-rounded team. This means having a good balance of players who can deliver consistent points, as well as those who have the potential to blow up and deliver huge numbers. It's also important to pay attention to your team's bye weeks, making sure you have enough depth to cover your bases when your top players are out. As the season progresses, it's crucial that you stay active and make smart trades. This means identifying areas where your team needs improvement and finding players who can help fill those gaps. It's also important to be willing to cut ties with players who aren't delivering, even if it's hard to let them go. One of the most important strategies for dominating your league is staying ahead of the curve when it comes to advanced stats. This means looking beyond the surface level and digging deeper into the numbers to find players who have the potential to break out. One advanced stat that can give you an edge is expected points, which takes into account a player's past performance and adjusts it based on their upcoming opponents. Another advanced stat that can help you dominate your league is projected targets. This stat looks at a player's past performance in terms of receptions and targets, and projects their future performance based on those numbers. By looking at projected targets, you can identify players who are likely to see an uptick in production and get ahead of the curve. Finally, one of the most important things you can do to dominate your league is stay updated on player injuries. This means keeping a close eye on the latest news and developments, and being prepared to adapt your strategy when a key player goes down. In conclusion, dominating your fantasy football league takes a combination of solid research, advanced stats, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. By avoiding common pitfalls, building a well-rounded team, and staying ahead of the curve, you can set yourself up for success and take home the championship. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's your go-to strategy for dominating your fantasy football league? Be sure to share this video with your friends, and don't forget to tune in next week when we'll be covering player rankings and revealing our top picks for the upcoming season.